Us stay with the theme of breakfast.
The Breakfast campaign promoted independence as the solution to numerous concerns regarding immigration, border control and various economic and legislative issues. However, while 52% of the population voted to leave, it seems that a large number of voters did not fully comprehend the potential consequences of doing so.
I know you voted out.
Yes.
If there was one thing you could do now, what would it be and why?
I would go back to the polling station and vote to stay.
Did you think you might get a chance to vote again?
Yeah.
Well, at least they didn't parade around in a giant red bus with potentially voter-decisive promises printed on the side only to backtrack on those promises after the fact. That would have been strange.
The £350 million a week we send to the EU, which we will no longer send to the EU, can you guarantee that's going to go to the NHS?
No, I can't, and I would never have made that claim.
I don't know how many people voted on the basis of that advert, but that was a huge part of the propaganda. You're now saying that's a mistake.
Whether or not independence will ultimately be a good thing for the UK or the prologue to a Black Mirror episode remains to be seen. It's difficult to pinpoint the single most widespread meme or viral trend of 2016, so I guess the entirety of the US election will have to suffice. I mean, it's even received a dedicated page on knowyourmeme.com, and we all know why.
I'm very highly educated. I know words, I have the best words,
With that being said, while Mr. Trump may have won the electoral vote, we all know that the true champion of the election was none other than Ken Bone.
One more question from Ken Bone.
What steps will your energy policy take to meet our energy needs, while at the same time remaining environmentally friendly and minimizing job loss for fossil power plant workers?
Other memes include Ted Cruz being outed as the Zodiac Killer.
And when the children were misbehaving, I will tell you, I could hit a kid. You would be spinning across the room. I could drop you at 20 paces.
Mother Nature herself choosing Bernie Sanders when a bird landed on his podium. Trump's tiny, tiny hands.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they?
And perfectly normal human reactions by Hillary Clinton. Non-election related viral trends included the mannequin challenge, this feat of modern lyrical brilliance, a poorly animated frog on a unicycle.
Here comes that bullshit water. Watch him rollin', watch him go, watch him rollin', watch him go, watch him rollin'.
And what can only be described as an ad for a shoe brand.
Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Back at it again with the white
A leak known as the Panama Papers unraveled over the course of 2016. The leak consisted of 11.5 million documents and originated from a Panamanian law firm known as Mossack Fonseca. The documents contained financial information about shell corporations owned by or connected to presidents, kings, politicians, executives, celebrities, and many other powerful and influential individuals around the globe. But what's so interesting about many of these shell corporations is that they have been used for various illegal purposes, such as tax evasion, fraud, kleptocracy, money laundering, etc. In other words, the rich and powerful have taken advantage of various loopholes in an effort to remain rich and powerful, and the world collectively gasped in shock. Some people with direct or indirect ties to these documents include the Prime Minister of Iceland, the President of Argentina, friends and relatives of Vladimir Putin, the King of Saudi Arabia, the Prime Minister of Italy, various people connected to the Clinton family, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, members and presidents of FIFA, Lionel Messi, Tiger Woods, Jackie Chan, Simon Cowell, and many, many others. As I've covered anniversaries in my last 2 end-of-the-year videos, it only seems appropriate to continue that tradition and to remind you all that your youth is slipping away as the inevitability of death is approaching ever so swiftly. 10 years ago, the Nintendo Wii and PlayStation 3 were released, Twitter was launched, Google acquired YouTube, the 2 sitcoms That 70s Show and Malcolm in the Middle concluded, and the solar system lost a planet as the word planet was formally redefined, and as a consequence, Pluto was downgraded to a dwarf planet. 50 years ago, Star Trek began, while the animated show The Flintstones concluded after 6 seasons. 75 years ago, the attack on Pearl Harbor took place and consequently led to the United States' entry into World War II. 100 years ago, one of the bloodiest battles in not only World War I but all of human history, known as the Battle of the Somme, claimed the lives of over 1 million soldiers. Pokémon became a widespread phenomenon this year due to the immensely popular mobile augmented reality game Pokémon Go.
Pokemon go to the polls!
It's been downloaded over 500 million times and has been praised for incentivizing people to become more physically and socially active. However, it also generated controversy due to various accidents and safety concerns. Some examples include people getting lost, increased inattentiveness, trespassings, traffic accidents, and even a few deaths. On the 15th of July, soldiers marched onto the streets of Istanbul and other major cities across Turkey. They were part of a faction of the Turkish military who wanted to overthrow the Turkish government due to various political motivations. Over 300 people were killed as a result, but the coup ultimately failed as the attackers were defeated by forces still loyal to the state. Tens of thousands were arrested and detained in the aftermath, and the president of Turkey issued a 3-month state of emergency. It's believed that the coup leaders were part of a movement known as the Gulen movement that is led by an Islamic preacher living in the United States. And even though Mr. Gulen has denied any involvement, hundreds of thousands have now been fired from their jobs on accusations of simply having connections to the movement. On August the 19th, Samsung released their latest smartphone, the Galaxy Note 7. Demand for the phone was initially high and sales exceeded expectations. But then something interesting happened. Reports from all over the globe suggested that the phone had severe issues with overheating. A defect that was so extreme that the phone could literally burst into flames or even explode. Samsung were then quick to identify a defect in the battery of the phone and began offering replacements. That is, until the replacement phones began exploding as well. Perfectly illustrated here in this real-to-life recreation. Cars were set aflame and multiple flights had to be cancelled. Production of the Galaxy Note 7 was eventually discontinued and the company lost an estimated $17 billion due to the mishap. As divisive as this year has been for many, most seem to agree that 2016 has not been great. And I must concur, as it was truly a challenge to find positive things to say about 2016. Natural disasters, unnatural disasters, celebrities and other public figures passing away. But through the chaos and destruction, a beacon of hope is shining as bright as ever. It's been a pretty great year for astronomy and related fields, beginning with a revolutionary astronomical observation. A phenomenon known as gravitational waves that had been predicted by Albert Einstein exactly 100 years ago in 1916 was in February announced to have been detected and observed for the very first time, thus confirming the last remaining unproven prediction of general relativity and redefining the future of astrophysics forever. In September, a 30-ton meteorite was discovered in Argentina, making it the 4th largest meteorite ever discovered on Earth. An Earth-like exoplanet was found orbiting within the habitable zone of Proxima Centauri, the closest star to the Sun. In an effort to find new life on the planet Mars, the ESA and Roscosmos launched the ExoMars mission. Unfortunately, the probe that was supposed to land on the Martian surface crashed into the planet and left a tiny black dot as evidence of its demise. The world's largest radio telescope was completed in China and will, among other things, be used to scan the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, as none have been found on planet Earth. The spacecraft Juno began orbiting Jupiter and photographed the planet's north and south pole for the very first time. Many had speculated that the poles of Jupiter may exhibit a hexagonal shape, much like the North Pole of Saturn, but as we now know, this is not the case. And finally, the private spaceflight company SpaceX performed a vertical landing on a floating platform after numerous failed attempts. A perfect example of how science fiction becomes science fact. Artificial intelligence is easily one of the most prevalent themes in all of science fiction. The idea that a machine could exhibit the same level of intelligence and sentience as a human being has captivated writers and audiences alike for decades. From an ominous computer system in 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
To superhuman androids in Westworld.
Turn the other cheek.
This captivating subgenre of science fiction has experienced a diverse range of depictions. But fiction has a habit of romanticizing certain aspects, such as the frequent inclusion of humanoid robots. Building a robot in pursuit of AI is a bit like constructing the chassis of a car before the internal combustion engine was even invented. But I guess anthropomorphism is just an easier solution than expecting audiences to get emotionally attached to a few lines of code. Unless you're Joaquin Phoenix, of course, but that dude can do anything. In recent years, a few outspoken intellectuals such as Elon Musk, Sam Harris, Stephen Hawking, Nick Bostrom to name a few, have voiced genuine concerns for the rise of artificial intelligence as brilliant minds across the globe are competing to retrace the hundreds of millions of years of evolution that resulted in the human brain. And while many experts have no doubts about machines' ability to achieve human-level intelligence at some point in the future, just as many believe it to be an impossibility. And perhaps it is. Perhaps we are incomprehensibly complex in such a way that we cannot do what nature has done to us. Then again, if random mutations can lead to intelligence, how hard can it be? In fact, even though evolution had a hell of a head start, machines have already surpassed us in some limited domains. Take the two popular board games chess and Go. The best human chess and Go players in the world have been defeated by artificial intelligence. Just think about that. No human player will ever again become the best at either of these two games. No matter how hard you try, even if you dedicate your entire life to become the best player you could possibly be, it will never be enough. Luckily for us, there's a lot more to the human condition than chess and Go, but is it that dubious to think that more general talents and abilities could be rendered equally obsolete? Assuming it's possible, what happens when machines become more competent at performing any and all physical and mental labor? If AI becomes more competent in every regard, then what purpose or function would be left for us to serve? The music playing in the background of this video was entirely composed by a machine. Here's another example. How about some acoustic guitar? or some drum and bass. It's quite impressive, but then take a listen to this. This short and simple composition may sound rather unimpressive in comparison, but then consider this. This sound is not the sound of a piano. The sound itself, the waveform itself, was created by an AI in an effort to mimic the sound of a piano. Machines have also begun tackling the human language by writing poems. When I in dreams behold thy fairest shade, whose shade in dreams doth wake the sleeping morn, the daytime shadow of my love betrayed lends hideous night to dreaming's faded form. You know who would love this nonsensical mess of words that is inexplicably a real language? That's correct, the Danes. So poems may not be the best example, but news articles is a better one. Machine-written content has become so commonplace and so good that you've likely read a few automated articles without even realizing it. If you pause the video, see if you can discern which of these two paragraphs were written by an AI. The answer will be in the description. Now this is one of my favorites. Many of you have likely played around with text-to-speech engines. You input some text and then a voice will read it aloud.
Many of you have likely played around with text-to-speech engines. You input some text and then a voice will read it aloud. Please send help.
Up until now, this has been accomplished by having a voice actor read a long series of sentences and words. Then you splice the syllables into tiny samples before attempting to stitch and morph them back together. Artificial intelligence can not only do this in seconds, but can also produce a more natural-sounding speech. Let's take a listen.
The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Kleiser. The Blue Lagoon is a 1980 American romance and adventure film directed by Randall Kleiser. Aspects of the Sublime in English Poetry and Painting, 1770 to 1850. Aspects of the Sublime in English Poetry and Painting, 1770 to 1850.
It can also produce human-like gibberish.
Sådan. It was patricial. Jag stod till man, but den är in on citality, Gerald the threatening that got killed at so. I'm plus.
Finally, an echo. Rough so like the end of the Lar House is a phone. That's like, is it today?
So, how does it work? Well, as you can imagine, it's complicated, and that's a severe understatement, but let's use an analogy. Think of a human infant. An infant doesn't really know or comprehend anything. It's just an oblivious sack of meat that occasionally moves around and screams a lot. Nevertheless, the human brain must be doing something, right? I mean, it's not dead, so what's happening? Well, for the most part, the brain will be searching for patterns, systematically attempting to identify recurring events in an effort to make sense of the world. Colorful toys equals fun. Vegetables, not so fun. If mommy and daddy can speak, maybe I can speak. If they can walk around on 2 feet, maybe I can too. A few years of this repetitive learning process and we can go from this to this, and even this, and unfortunately this. You don't want that. This is essentially what machine learning is all about. You create a simple mathematical model of the human brain and then you feed it a bunch of information. This artificial neural network will then attempt to make sense of this information by learning from past mistakes and imitation. The result is this natural evolution that no human could ever manually program. And there's really no reason why this system could not be scaled up to human levels and beyond. A limiting factor of the human brain is that it has to fit inside a cranium. An artificial brain could be the size of a building or larger still. An AI could also operate at the speed of light as well as improve upon itself. In essence, it could teach itself how to learn new things, and in doing so would eliminate the need for a human at the controls. I don't know about you, but the fact that this is even theoretically possible makes me a bit worried for the future. There is a genuine cause for concern, as lost in this idealistic quest for improvement is the function of humanity itself. If we render the species incompetent, what's to prevent artificial intelligence from recognizing that incompetence and taking control? Because how do we control something that is more intelligent than us? It would be like a colony of ants attempting to control even a single person. It just isn't believable. And elaborating upon that analogy, think about the way we treat ants. Most of us don't have some deep hatred for ants, but if they are ever in the way of something that we want to accomplish, we could not care less about their existence. And even if we did care, how would we explain to them that they need to move because we want to construct a building or something? Attempt to explain to the millions of animals living in the jungle the geopolitical and socio-economical reasons for why we continue to destroy their home. It's impossible. They simply lack the intelligence to understand. And that is what so many are concerned about, that we would lack the intelligence to keep up. So this concern for AI has nothing to do with malevolence, it's simply a fear of losing control. Then there's the issue of sentience and cognition, which are entirely different beasts altogether, but if we assume that super intelligence is possible, how long until that happens? It may be sooner than you think, as most estimations seem to land in between 3 to 6 decades. So within this century. But I mean, it's just estimations, so who knows? No one can predict the future. We don't know, to be honest. I seriously hope they're wrong though, because it'd be so much more convenient if we could just leave this impending doom of humanity to our children and just reap the benefits in the meantime.